What's up everybody, welcome back, and today we're doing something a little different. We're going to be talking about the German Army mod, especially since the German Army seems to be the most requested faction to be added to base game squad. So first, hit the subscribe button, leave a like, drop a comment down below. What are your thoughts on what you see about the mod, and did you get a chance to try it? And with that, let's take a look at this. This mod is actually made by the BWMod team. It's been under development for several years, and somewhere around 60 people have at some point contributed to the mod. While they've obviously been focused on authenticity to the German army, there's a lot of effort put into this mod. It's certainly noticeable with the details that they've incorporated. It's nice because they've also added things to provide more variety for how players play, including new tech that you saw in the intro, like destructible bridges on their Narva rework. So not only will you see new vehicles and new weaponry, you'll also find some things that this mod almost feels like a test bed for what could be possible in squad. So while the playtest is actually over, I wanted to take some time to dive into some of what this team has been working on and share that with you all. And who knows, maybe we'll see some of these elements or more incorporated into the game into the future. So let's start by taking a look at the infantry. The most prominent weapon being the G36, which you'll find in two variations, one without a foregrip and one with. There are two things that stand out to me with the G36. First of all, it takes up a lot of the right side of the screen in terms of how it's positioned. And this is partially due to the fact that every G36 has two optics attached. One is a red dot and one is a magnified scope. These can be switched between by just holding X on your keyboard and scrolling your mouse wheel. Something you'll notice is that some of these weapons have specific sounds to them because the modders have been working on getting the actual sounds from these weapons incorporated into the mod. It takes a little bit of time getting used to switching back and forth between the scopes based on situations, but it's really nice to have that sort of flexibility. As one would expect, the G36 has its own feel. It took me a little bit of time to get used to, but those medium range firefights, it started to feel pretty comfortable. Next, let's take a look at the MP7. You'll see this weapon across several kits as well, including crewman type roles. You'll also have it available to the SL and combat engineer. This is another weapon with its own sound profile. Check it out. I really enjoy the audio for that. Now, as you imagine, this is certainly a CQB weapon. This is going to be great in tight urban environments, but not so great at longer distance fights. Next up, you're going to have the G3 DMR. This is an option in a couple of kits, including Marksman, and there's an option for the SL to take this. This is going to act similar to the G3s we already have in game, but you're going to have a hell of a scope attached. Now, I'm curious how many of you might opt for this in certain scenarios, especially if you're playing, let's say, SL. I think what's cool for squad leaders is within this mod, you have three very different options for your weaponry, being the G36, the G3, or the MP7. That's just a nice range of weaponry to be able to use as a squad lead. In addition to the G3 for marksman, you're also going to have the G28. And you'll notice right off the bat that you have two optics available on this weapon. So while both the G3 and the G28 are able to be bipoded, the red dot on the G28 gives you a little more flexibility in how the marksman can play. Just like that, suddenly the marksman has a bit more capability with that attached red dot. This goes back to the BWMod team giving some variety to add maybe to the fun that people can have playing different roles. But I also wonder if we added red dots to more marksman rifles across squad, how that would affect marksman positioning. Would it improve? Because I do think this is a cool option to have. For the sniper role, we get the G22A2. Much like the last couple of weapons, we do get the bipod, you get a variable scope, but no red dot. But again, another weapon with a pretty cool audio profile. Next up, you're going to have the iconic MG3. For the machine gunner, you'll get a scope with that. With the auto rifleman, you'll have just iron sights. The other auto rifleman comes with the M249, but I think this is just placeholder as the team expects to have the MG3, MG4, and MG5 for the MG roles. Now for heavy anti-tank, you're going to have a couple of options, including a role with two tandems or the bunker Faust, whereas last will receive heat options. But I did think the sight for the launcher was pretty interesting. It gives you the ability to sort of align a MBT turret and chassis with the sight itself. This could also work for IFVs, obviously, may just take some tailoring and getting used to. But for someone who doesn't run as much hat and lat, this was a very helpful sight to use to help aim the weapon. Now that we've covered some of the infantry, let's talk about some of the vehicles for the German army. First, you'll get a German version of the Leopard. This comes complete with a new paint job and some camo netting. My expectation is you'll have some subtle differences between this and the Canadian Leopard. I can't speak to armor values, but I do know the optics I believe are the same, but I would expect the BWMod team to continue to separate this from what already exists. Next, we should talk about the IFV for the German army, being the Boxer. Right now, there's two variations, including an M2 Browning on one, while you have a 30mm autocannon on the other. This is a pretty strong and mobile vehicle. The autocannon variant is going to be somewhere between an LAV6 and a Bradley in terms of its strength. Not to mention it has a couple ATGMs and a really cool feature we should discuss. The Boxer has auto ranging, so by aiming at a target and tapping X, it'll calculate the range. Therefore, the center of your sight is already aligned at the distance of the target. So if we switch to a different target, we would hit X for it to calculate. There's a short delay after the beep, and then you are ranged. And as for one more example, if we go to the 750 meter target, you'll see how short we are landing. But once we do our auto calculation, you'll see that we are ranged for that 750 meter target. I think to some degree it's pretty subtle, but it's a really cool piece of tech added to this vehicle. Of course, you'll have heat rounds, AP rounds, coax, smoke, and a couple ATGMs to really give this vehicle a robust opportunity at fighting. And this is something I was hoping for with some more Blue 4 vehicles, is to have those ATGMs. Not to mention, this vehicle does support a pretty good commander seat with plenty of visibility. And these are primed for mechanized infantry as they do hold a full infantry squad inside. I'm really interested to see how the Boxer continues to get developed because I think this could be a fun vehicle for Blue 4 factions. Next, we have the Logi and Transport for the German army. I would commend the team on their ability to make this vehicle feel like it has an actual weight to it. It doesn't feel very wobbly. In fact, the handling feels appropriate for the vehicle. And the Boxer also feels that way as well, which is nice. I also love the woodland camo option for these vehicles. It just looks really good. And I really like subtle differences between the Transport and the Logi having the canopy on top, which might add a little suspense to those in the back of the Transport. Finally, both will get an MG3 mounted to the top, giving you some defense. For light vehicles, the Germans have the Dingo. Currently, there are two RWS variants in the game, one with a 50 cal and one with an MG3. I will say kudos to the team for the RWS gunner panel. I think this is going to be pretty similar to what you have in the Boxer, if I remember correctly. It does seem pretty immersive and detailed. Now, it does appear that there are several vehicles still on the way, including the Weasel. It reminds me a lot of like the British Scimitar. It's a recon vehicle, very small, lightweight, and pretty quick. You'll also see a helicopter for the German faction that looks awfully similar to the Australian Defense Force, but this has been reworked for the German army. It does appear that there's APCs and maybe more IFVs that are inbound for the German army mod. It's also important to note that battle groups are already forming for the German army mod, similar to what we have already in Squad, with various factions having different units that can be deployed. Now, I mentioned earlier that the BWMod team has been working on different types of tech to incorporate in the game, or at least within their mod. But I would emphasize that this is very much like work in progress testing to see how it can be incorporated. But the BWMod team worked on Narva Plus, a variation of Narva with some of these cool features. It's got a few more emplacements than we're accustomed to on Narva, including trenches, which I think add a very interesting dynamic to being able to defend certain areas, especially with how these are employed in certain positions to slow down an attack. I think things like this would add to what invasion layers could be if they were this focused on that game mode. But I think the point is this offers a slightly different dynamic to the defense. Maybe it makes defense more OP in a situation where you need some balance for the attackers, but I think it'd be cool to see maps with these little tidbits added. But something widely asked for would be some sort of destructible environment, and that's again something they have tested here. This again could cut down on lanes and opportunities for the attacking team to launch their attack. But it is cool to see this somehow interpreted and added into the game. And it's not like entire buildings are falling, but BWMod team also found another way to incorporate destruction. Now, this is obviously smaller scale and less taxing on performance, but it is kind of cool to see how this could affect the game. Imagine certain doors blocking better sightlines, so you have to blow the door in order to get to it. Or could this be something incorporated in different game modes? For example, a friend of mine brought up having this feature in something like Insurgency. But I could also see it on some of our smaller maps like Samari, giving us additional pathways. I think it's always a great thing to have modders developing something for a game. Whether it's a new faction, new tech, vehicles, whatever it is, it's typically beneficial for modders to be playing with these sort of things and giving an outside perspective. And while the playtest is over, it's still important for the community to support the modders. So down below in the description, I'll have a link for their Discord, for their website, so that you guys can go and follow along. While this is still a work in progress, there's still a lot of opportunity here, and many of you have requested the German army being added in the first place, so it'd be important to support this mod, and maybe one day we'll see it implemented into Squad. But at the very least, we can continue to support the mod so that we see this continuing to get development and moving closer to completion. And with that said, be sure to hit the subscribe button, leave a like, drop a comment down below. What are your thoughts on the mod and what you've seen so far, or if you had a chance to play the playtest? And of course, a special shout out to the BWMod team for their support in making this video, and I'll see you next time.